Welcome to A Seat at the Table. I am your host, Holly Cotton. And the purpose of this show is to raise awareness for minority populations, especially focusing on this year's election. But not just that, but to also educate people, rather it be with my expertise and experience or by using someone else's expertise to educate you guys on some of the issues and make sure that you aren't making mistakes in this political race, as well as staying abreast to issues, navigating social media, all of that stuff. That's what we're doing here, educating you guys. So today I have a really fun guest. It's going to be super, super exciting. I have Miss Symone Redwine, who is an attorney. And I know if you are on social media at all, you've seen Symone dissecting someone's case. She's all on Diddy. She predicted the Diddy downfall way before it even happened. So she's definitely someone. Make sure you follow her and stay, support her, all of that stuff. So welcome, Symone.
Thank you so much, y'all. I'm attorney Symone, your legal bestie, is how I've been described online. And I have the YouTube channel, Girl, Is That Legal? Where I love dissecting, as she said, celebrity legal drama and explaining it for the everyday person.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so what I wanted to do today is because there are so many politicians that are going viral for things that maybe they aren't even planning to go viral for. So just saying something by accident, now you become a meme, or someone is now using you as a green screen and they're using you as an example of what not to do. There's also a lot of the politicians that are African American that are now endorsing Trump, and they're getting a lot of backlash from that just because of the way that they are supporting him. It's like, if you want to be a Republican and you want to be a supportive of Republican Party, do it, but you don't have to do it by bringing down
Denigrating the black community. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go straight into it, because I want people to have the viewers and whenever they make the snip about this, I want you guys to see some of these. If you looked up anybody, if you looked up Mark Robinson or any of his posts on social media, these are some of the snips. So let's let the viewers see. So you guys know I try to stay unbiased because I want to get the real opinion from other people, and I want you guys' authentic opinion about stuff as well. But you can't say, when you look at some of those memes, that one, would I want myself to look like that? Would I want someone to take a picture of me and now I have a swastika on my sleeve? So first, Symone, what do you think about some of these memes?
I think he's an idiot. And to be clear, these memes are not coming from nowhere. These are statements he has said. These are statements that he's proud of. But now that the GOP, the Republican Party, is distancing himself from them, he's trying to walk them back. But in this day and age of technology, you can't do that. We already know that you were out here shucking and jiving, okay? At this point, he's worse than Clarence Thomas, and that's hard to do. That's hard to do. But it's kind of ironic to say, but in politics, people still want authenticity. And whether this man is shucking and jiving for an audience that he wants to attract, or whether this is really him, either way, I do not believe it is going to resonate with the people of North Carolina. It's hateful, it's divisive, and especially right now with the storms and all of the tragedy that they're working through to survive, they don't need somebody who's going to tear them apart even more.
That's a great point. That's why we got her in here, to give y'all some of the legalities of it. So what I wanted to do, I made some questions up about just going into that, because I want to know, like, what are my rights that I have? Or, if something I say here and now it's been flipped 32 times and now Holly Cotton becomes a meme on something, like, what rights do I have? So my questions are, with more celebrities publicly endorsing candidates or with more celebrities publicly endorsing candidates or causes, let's go into the legal side of endorsement campaign finance laws. Is there a fine line between free speech and influencing voters too much?
No, I don't think so. I think with the whole point of exercising your free speech as it comes to an election is to be able to say, hey guys, I like this candidate. Now, If you begin to just bold-faced lie on someone and say, they're over here eating babies and doing these things that they're not doing, you do run the risk of that candidate suing you for defamation. That can happen. But then there's also the line of hyperbole. So hyperbole is just, where it's a huge exaggeration, but anyone with sense would know you're not actually meaning that this person is eating babies, right? You're basically implying that this person doesn't like kids, that they're not kind or nurturing, those kinds of things, right? But like Amber Rose can be just as goofy as she'd like to be and say what she wants to say about one side. And then we could have the Taylor Swifts on the other side that are out here being as goofy as she might want to be and supporting her candidate. So I do think it's great that in America, whether it's the candidate for you or not, you are allowed to scream the praises you'd like from the mountaintops. And one of the most vocal that we see in the media is actually Elon Musk. When you compare him to the Taylor Swift, he's got probably the largest international platform. Competitive with Taylor Swift just because of across different platforms, her following. But for me, I think the most dangerous person to watch for are the Elon Musks because he is actually sharing AI created, factually wrong, straight up lies about candidates that he doesn't support and with no ramifications. And so that's where I think that we need, like, what happened with Congress? Congress had hearings dealing with Facebook and how Facebook allowed interference in the last election, the election that was with Trump versus Hillary Clinton. And so that then makes me want to know, well, why is this acceptable when Elon Musk is doing it? And I think the answer is it's not. But with the Supreme Court that we have in place, it's really the Supreme Court has scaled back the authority of federal agencies, such as the agencies that oversee elections. So honestly, they move so slowly, but that by the time something is done, the election will be over with.
And see, you were reading my mind, Symone, because that was my next question. I was going to say that whenever you look at TV, when you look at the news, when you're looking at social media channels, when you're looking at X, because obviously when you own it, you have a.
Yeah,
You
I still like to call it Twitter just to piss him off.
I know, right. I know someone said X the other day, and I was like, DMX? And I was like, oh, let me stop showing my age. But whenever you're watching TV, you are seeing that it seems like everyone is in court. Everyone has pending charges about something. Everyone is going through something, or people are coming out of the woodworks and exposing them, or it just seems that election season highlights all of the court cases and things that are going on. And a lot of times I get asked about, well, hey, Holly, can you ask someone about Trump? Like, how is Trump still able to run and have these pending charges? How is Trump? And I'm like, hey, when I get my next person on, I will ask that question. So, can you give us some insight into that? How are criminals or people with pending criminal charges able to still run for political candidacy?
It's because the forefathers never thought we would have a presidential candidate so stupid as the ones that we have now. Literally, when they were constructing the laws, never in their mind did they ever conceive of someone that was actually a felon running for president. Like, of course that wouldn't happen. Heck no. Which is why felons can't vote. So what happens, though, is Congress really doesn't get together to amend rules pertaining to running for president, especially a rule like that would be, so if the rule were, hey, we should amend it to say no felons. Well, probably the time to have done that would have been back with Nixon, right? That was the last time we had a president involved with something that was so criminal. Now, arguably, Clinton, when he had the whole, Monica Lewinsky thing, that could go into perjury, perhaps. But even then, he wasn't running for reelection. He had done his second term. But what happens is when when Congress doesn't act, when the issue is hot on the press, and when the issue is relevant to the American people, they got so many other things to do, it just falls to the wayside. So I really think it's just that no one ever conceived of anyone that is a felon having any legitimate chance at running for presidency. So they really just didn't even think of amending the laws. But now we see we've got to do that and then some.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification because people do, especially now with me hosting this podcast, and I'm like, I don't know. I didn't become a political analyst. I'm media talent. I don't know. I just ask the questions or engage. So I'm glad that you broke that down. And also, I wanted to ask because whenever we were talking about you being able to make someone a meme, or whenever you take my picture, like I would say that that's considered slander or libel. So where does that cross the line whenever you're talking about, like, now you're using my image and you're making me into like the images that we
Right.
saw?
So those are considered, they would be part of the area of law that allows free speech for things that are like satire. Right. So satire has always been a huge part of the political product process of political comedy. And satire is basically like extreme exaggeration, or it's comical and it's made to provoke thought. No one expects that a satirical comic or that kind of thing is literal. And so that's why it's permissible. The other thing about it is people are not, so the law changes based on, is someone trying to make money off of this? So
Mhm.
if it's satirical and maybe someone shares it on a YouTube video or something, that's okay. Now, if they take your photo and it's a photo that you own and they put it on a shirt, that's different. They can't put
Mm.
your photo on a shirt. But if they draw a caricature of you and everyone can tell, it's you, and they sell it on a shirt and it's satirical, they have permission under
So
the law.
that's why it always looks like that caricature, or
Mhm.
they make it where it's not really you, but you know that it's you,
Correct.
and that's why they always do the elephant and the donkeys to
Yes.
represent the party instead of the candidates. Oh,
Yep, you got that little T.
I got it now. Okay, all right. So social media censorship and the First Amendment. So First Amendment, freedom of speech. So that is so broad whenever
Mhm.
people they're saying, well, I should have freedom of speech. I can say what I want to say. Well, I can be a racist, or I can be anti anything I want because I
Mhm.
have freedom of speech. So for people who are asking about that, where is the line for freedom of speech? Is there ever a line? How do we sort of keep that where it's not too far left or too far right, or is that impossible to regulate?
So there are a lot of gray areas, but kind of the safe way to think of it is you cannot incite violence.
Mm,
Speech that incites violence has always and will
mhm,
always um, be actionable, right? And that's because, for example, you can't incite a riot. You can't pull everyone together and say, go unalive this person. No, you can't do that. And in fact, we've seen in court cases where people have gone to jail for doing that.
mhm,
And so, and then you'll also notice under the law, and then there's the law of the United States, right? Free speech there. And then there's the laws of Facebook and the
mhm.
laws of Instagram
Oh
and
my
YouTube.
gosh.
And what's interesting is at
That's a
times it
lawless
seems
community.
like those laws may have more pertinence to our everyday life in that
Mhm,
hate speech is precluded on those
mhm,
platforms. But what we're starting to see is their definition of hate speech precludes people from sharing the truth about atrocities that happen towards a certain group.
mhm,
So, for example, Sean King. Sean King is a political activist who shares information about, Palestinians, Black people, all kinds of underdogs throughout America. He's been very vocal about what's been going on over there in Israel and Palestine, and has been permanently banned from Instagram. And he believes that it was because he was sharing the truth about what was happening over there in the war. That's his opinion. And then I've heard many women um, okay, I shouldn't laugh at this, but I recently got my page suspended for a little while because I had this little hater, this little troll. She tried to get my page taken down because I was telling the truth about her and her little scamming husband. Anyway, um, when my page got taken down, I was asking a friend, like, hey, have you ever experienced that? She was like, so what it was is if a bunch of people report your page on like the same day or on the same time
mhm.
over and over, automatically it'll shut that person's page down because Instagram and Facebook, they use basically an automated system to track complaints. Well, when I was explaining to her, I was like, I don't know what I should do. She's like, that happens a lot to fat girls who post photos of themselves in bikinis.
What?
Yes.
Why are you flagging? Let that
Yes.
girl live her best
Exactly. So
life.
people will like post. So I say that to say the Instagram definition of
Uh-huh.
hate speech or it and that is just like people will just say this is offensive. Literally, they'll take the big girl in the bikini and be like, ew, I don't want to see it. Offensive, offensive. Shame on them. Because she's just trying to get her life. And then
Wow.
she's got to appeal to get her page back just because she wanted to be a run around in thong.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
here's how I am. If I don't want to see it, I just don't look at it.
Well, that's you think if people just had a little more self-control. So I say that to say, don't let the Instagram or the social media definition of speech impact your understanding of the truth. The truth of the matter is you have a lot more leeway in America, but you cannot instigate violence. You
Mhm.
cannot defame people publicly. And when you are dealing with a public person, there's a lot more leeway with what you can say. And that public people, someone who steps out there and says, I'm going to be a politician, they have a lot more leeway with respect to what you can say.
Mhm.
However, what was interesting is there was an interesting case where Melania actually won successfully because someone had posted information online. It was actually a news article that claimed that she previously was a porn star. Apparently, that's not true.
Mhm.
And so she was able to successfully sue for
Mhm.
that as defamation, particularly she had sexy photos and things like that, but the argument was she had never actually been a porn star and was
Mhm.
successful in doing so. So you can't just say whatever.
Well, I also wanted to ask you about that, about the regulating and what do you do legally? So, because I've never been banned or shadow banned or anything like fortunately, but I do know that I do get something that's going against community
Guidelines.
guidelines.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And I'm thinking, what? What are y'all talking about? This is
Hmm.
so like vanilla. It's not even
Right.
anything that's crazy. There's never anything. So I just keep my page very
Yeah,
vanilla
me
now
too.
for because I don't have time for all of that. But how can we do that if your page is taken down or if it's banned or
So I know. So every page they have an appeal process, but the problem is that appeal process. So usually when your page is initially taken down, it's through an automated system. Like as I mentioned, they get enough complaints during a certain time window, they just automatically suspend you. You get the option to hit appeal. So you hit appeal. It's when you hit appeal, that's when a human actually takes a look. And
Mhm.
so you have to count on that human seeing it in your way. And they do go by the number of multiples that happen beforehand. So unfortunately, there's not much you can do because at the end of the day, these are private companies and they can decide who they do and don't want on their platform. And there's no due process, which is what you have in America under the legal system for other things you actually have rights to. There's no right to be on Instagram or Facebook. Mhm.
Well, it's so funny that we're living in the era where that's what people think are right now.
Yeah.
Food, clothing, access to healthcare, and access to social media,
Right.
which is insane. So I also wanted to ask you, whenever we're talking about, because I know tonight is the vice presidential
Oh, yeah.
election.
Oh, that's going to be
So
great.
I know it's very interesting to see how these two will be there, and also because I think that Trump is not very wordy and he doesn't know how to articulate his
Articulate.
uh-huh
Mhm.
what he's thinking, and a lot of the stuff when he does articulate is not correct at all. So I wanted to ask about the fact checkers and how that works with them from a legal standpoint. So if someone is fact checking the candidate whenever they're talking, because I was thinking about that with the community standards and the
Mhm.
fact checking or whatever. So one, how are they getting that information live to fact check? Do you know anything about that?
My guess, it's just my educated guess, is that it's AI. Man, you'd be surprised what ChatGPT can
Mm,
tell you.
mhm.
So they can put in, and I've actually fact checked certain things. I had someone who told me, he's like, oh, I live in Chicago and I don't, my issue is the immigrants. I said, excuse me. He was like, yeah, we give them $9,000 a month per month for housing. And I just fact checked it in his
Right.
face. I went to Google, and
Uh-huh.
Google has an AI thing that comes up. So it's
Mhm.
my understanding that it's something along those lines that they're able to use in real time. But the question becomes when they're lying or when they're wrong or giving misinformation, I'm curious to see tonight
Mhm.
how that's going to be how the audience will be notified.
So, as someone, because you're still a practicing lawyer,
Mhm.
you still see things, but are there any issues with you as still being in the law scene where you're like, wow, people don't even realize that they need to tell their local politicians that these are some things that they should be focusing on this election, or these are some things that they should be asking from those local politicians? Because the vice president, obviously, by the time their authoritative opinion gets to us, we've already had all these people in
Right.
Texas regulating our opinion. So, what are some of the things that you wish that they would talk about or address that would raise awareness for people, especially local elections?
One of my thing for local elections that I'm about sick and tired of, we're having issues with the police, excessive force, and those things. And one of the things that I wish that our local communities would do is we need to work together with the insurance companies with the insurance companies that insure police departments. So the reason they can whoop your ass, I'm sorry, the reason they can whoop your tail and without issue is because they're protected and that they're paid to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is when they go to, like, if I beat you up
Mm-hmm.
and you press charges, I got to hire my own lawyer. I don't get a free lawyer. I have to put up my own bail. When the police beat you up and you press charges, their union's insurance kicks in, pays for their lawyer, puts up their bail, blah, 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 makes it all nice and comfortable and cushy. And who pays for that? The local city taxpayers.
Mm.
But if we would work with our local city governments to say, hey, we're going to use insurance companies that each year are going to evaluate the police, and they're going to determine which ones have too many complaints, and we are not going to renew those officers' insurance within the insurance policy, then guess what? Those officers on their own quit.
Mm.
Because if they get charged with excessive force, they've got to mortgage their house.
Mm.
They've got to put up on their own bill. They're not going to do that.
Consequences.
There are consequences.
Mhm.
But what has to happen is that so there actually been, and we're in Texas, we're recording here from Texas. There's actually been a police department in Texas where they kept getting complaints from their little small town. And the insurance company, I think it was Travelers Insurance, came in and said, hey, you got to fire all these cops. You got to hire new ones, and you got to train them if you want to be insured. They did it. It actually allows them to work around the police unions, because the problem is the collective bargaining agreements are so strong with these police unions that it sets the terms, and it sets them for 5 years at a time, 10 years at a time. You can't work around those.
Mm-hmm.
But if the insurance company that insures them, that insurance company renews the insurance once a year.
Mm.
So that means they can get rid of any bad guys that they want to. And in turn, it brings down the cost of insuring the police department for all the taxpayers.
Okay. All right. So tell your local.
Yeah, so that's something you could say.
She already detailed every aspect
Basically,
of it.
what
as
are you
well.
guys doing towards police reform? One of the easiest ways is police reform through insurance premiums.
Mm. And that actually, because when every week I try to break down a part of Project 2025. And one of the things for Project 2025, one of the items on the to-do list is to deregulate the oversight of the police. That was in Project 2025. So people are just like, I think people, maybe it's a miseducation of it. Like they don't understand what that means, because again, you broke it down. Police brutality, the consequences that can come from it.
Right.
But what are we talking about at a national level if there is no regulation of
Getting your ass getting your butt whooped? No, it just means everyone can do what they
everyone
want.
doesn't think they think they're not that minority. They think, oh well, if I'm like the whole Tyreek Hill getting thrown on the ground, and everyone was
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, he's literally right outside about to play his game, and he's treated just like a thug.
Right.
So yeah.
So, and I think what it comes down to is because the police are the law, the problem is because think of it from the perspective, what if you were the guy who stole the girlfriend from the cop, right? You get pulled over by a cop and come to find out you stole his girlfriend, so he has a personal grudge against you. The law as it sits says he can't just pull you out of the car and beat you up or harass you, threaten you, any of that. But with the protections that Project 2025 and that the Trump administration want in place, basically saying as long as they're police officer doing it, it's okay. that they can always say, oh, I made a mistake, but I should be immune because I was an officer. The law says, no, that's not acceptable. There was a guy, actually, there was a gentleman. He's not a guy, he's an older gentleman. He was watering his neighbor's grass, I believe in Alabama or Mississippi. I can't remember which state. Watering the neighbor's grass,
Oh, yeah,
and the
I remember
police
that. Mhm.
arrested him. Well, in the lower court, so in the district federal court, the judge threw it out. The judge said, these police officers are immune. You can't sue them. But the appeals court said that, hell, you can't. The appeals court says police are only immune when they are following the law. And when they are not following the law, as here, it said they had no probable cause to arrest this man who was standing on his own property with a water hose watering the neighbor's yard, or even if he was standing on the neighbor's property, because the claim was they arrested him because he didn't show them ID. Well, the law says he doesn't have to. All he has to do is identify himself. He told him 11 times, I'm Pastor so-and-so, I'm Pastor so-and-so, and I live next door. Well, if they would have looked up the address next door, they would have saw that Pastor so-and-so owns the neighbor's house. Furthermore, since when in the hell is it a crime to be a good neighbor?
Mm.
Apparently only when you're Black in that community. And only when other neighbors determine, like, oh, what's this Black guy doing?
Right.
So I say that to say this was an instance where, thank God, we have a court that came in and said, no, this is not the appropriate way to apply immunity. But the problem we now have is, now that they've ruled in that way, this is going to go to the Supreme Court.
Mm.
And the Supreme Court that we have today is not at all supreme.
At all.
They are not fair, and they are clearly not just, and they make up the law as they want. So we will have to watch this case, because if the Supreme Court decides to hear it, and if they find in favor of the police, we don't even need Trump in there.
Mhm.
They get the immunity.
They get the immunity. Exactly. He knew what he was doing when he set all of that up. But anyway, I try to stay unbiased. But well, thank you so much, Symone, for all of your insight. Thank you for everything. I appreciate I even got to throw some Project 2025 in there, which is my mission to educate people. I say the reason why I accepted hosting this is because even if it isn't my expertise that I'm sharing and using to be the change, I love using someone else's to educate and be the change also. So thank you. So how can people find you? Said YouTube page.
Yes, you can go to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. It's called Girl, Is That Legal? And then you can also, if you want to book a consultation with me, I do legal consultations on a variety of different legal matters across the nation at SymoneRedwine.com. That's Symone with a Y. And you can always find me on Instagram at Attorney Symone Redwine.
I love it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I love being here.